Hey there, everyone. Welcome back if you joined us before, and if you haven't, welcome for the first time. We are delighted to be having a special session this time on Ask the Trainer. I'm Simon Walker. I'm head of training and learning at Maxon, and we have another session today where we've invited our training team to come and just chat to you and just to let you know a little bit more about ourselves. We did this once before and we got such a great reaction for it. We just wanted to do it again, tell you some stories, tell you about how some of us got started. And if you've got any questions about training in general, or even sneak a technical question about any of the tools that we use, then please do send that in the chat. But let's introduce everybody. So we'll switch over to the general view. So here we go. So some faces that you recognize from many of the webinars. Hey, everyone.
Hey there.
Hello.
A joint hi for everyone. Shall I have a go
Hello.
at just like going through all the names? All right. Hi, Dustin, Darrin, Ian, Diego, Noseman, Lionel, Tony, Jonas, and Max. Great. And behind
hello,
the scenes,
everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
And behind the scenes, we've got Hushi, who is helping us run everything as well. Hey, Hushi. You didn't know you were going to have to speak, did you? Anyway.
I'm here.
Yes. So, and also it's interesting because, as you well know, we run training sessions in many different topics and also in many different territories. And part of the trainings team tasks is to run live sessions and to record tutorials for Cineversity and so on. But we also run customer training sessions, and we run those in multiple different time zones, territories, and languages. And so, for example, Diego runs sessions for us in Spanish, and Lionel runs them in French. And Jonas has been known to run the odd session in German, of course, as well. So it's ironic to me that when we ask you to keep in English in the chat, because it's a general protocol for doing the chat thing in YouTube, actually, we are running these sessions in a variety of languages. So in any case, if you've got a question, please ask us. If you can keep it in English, that's great. But on the odd occasion, if you've got one for some of the other language speakers, you might be able to sneak one in there. But anyway, so what we thought we'd do, we ran on the previous session, we ran through some of the background that some of the trainers had, but we didn't have everybody here that we've got this time. And we've got, since the last time we did it, of course, we've got all our friends from ZBrush, which we're working with now. They're part of the big Maxon family. And we've got Ian here, who is a trainer with ZBrush. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Ian, if that's all right, and just ask you generally, what's it like to be a ZBrush trainer? And we might throw in a couple of how did you get started in there.
Perfect. Well, first off, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on these shows, but also be a part of the team. So thank you for having me. I would like to share my screen real quick while I talk, just to give a little context for those who don't know ZBrush. So let me pop over my screen real fast. Let me know if you guys can see that.
Wow.
So yeah. So my name is Ian Robinson. I am a ZBrush trainer over at Maxon, and it's actually really amazing to be a part of the team, to be able to come in and actually demonstrate software that a lot of people from Maxon may not be aware of. It is a digital sculpting program that is an industry standard for those of you who don't know, and it allows you to make pretty much anything. It's almost a limitless program that allows you to just come in and just create whatever you're thinking about. Here, I'm a huge Stranger Things fan, so I have a fan art piece of a Demogorgon from season 1. No spoilers. But ideally, like, it's just great because I get to run a few different programs on the shows. So we have How It's Made series, where we get to kind of help break down how to get started and how to make something in ZBrush. We do Ask ZBrush. If you YouTube Ask ZBrush, you're going to get a ton of different ZBrush questions that we answer on a regular basis. And it's just a really good program to get in and start just playing around. I started as a trainer. Actually, I started my training career about a couple of years ago. I've been sculpting for 7 years, and I really love toys and 3D printing. I've been 3D printing for 10 years. And when I got into 3D printing, I was like, I want to be able to make something that's really cool and get these statues. And how do people do that? And I was not aware of sculpting at all. No traditional sculpting background. So I just found ZBrush and then just started playing with it and fell in love with it immediately. So from there, I realized that there was a lot of information that when I was learning it, I'm self-taught for the most part. So when I was learning it, I just kind of figured things out. And then I realized that in the community, there was a lot of people who didn't have access to information or were struggling a little bit with how to find information. So I ended up doing live streams at the beginning of 2020, and I realized there was a big need for people wanting to learn and wanting to ask questions and have that information. So I kind of just like threw myself in the spotlight and said, "Hey, I'm a guy who streams ZBrush. Come check it out." And I started making videos, and from there, I ended up being lucky enough to apply and join the ZBrush Live team, which we go live almost every single day. And that's a place where we can come connect to the community and also teach the program as well. And then shortly after that, I applied to Maxon, and it's just been amazing because we have so much that I want to talk about that we can't talk about right now. But there's so much I want to talk about that is coming to help new users, current users, and future users come in and learn the program with ease. So, and yeah, stuff like this, super, super cool to me. So
I've got a question for you, Ian. That's very interesting about you just jumping in with both feet. And as you said, you didn't have any experience, but you just loved doing it. And then suddenly you're live streaming it. At what point did you know that this is good enough to live stream, or did you just think, I just want to share and I don't mind? And is it a learning experience for you as well?
it was actually, I wanted to basically just share my journey as an artist first and foremost. And I love teaching. I used to teach martial arts. I used to and I love doing that. So I just wanted to share my journey as an artist and connect with each other, and just kind of showcase that art is fun. It doesn't need to be super technical. It doesn't need to be super crazy all the time. You know, we have a time and a place to be technical. We have a time and a place to have something feel and look correct. But if I want to come in here and make a one-eyed monster with 13 legs and, 100,000 teeth, I can do that because it's fun, So I wanted to share that journey, and just let people know that art is fun. Don't worry about being technical. You just want to sculpt something, just sculpt something. We'll worry about the technical stuff later.
I visited the ZBrush offices, and you are located right next to Noseman School. And there's an amazing room there, which is full of clay sculptures. And lots of those techniques, of course, map themselves directly onto the exact same thing that you can do in ZBrush. And I've always wondered, and I've been too embarrassed to ask, but it's silly question time. Do you have to know anatomy to be sculpting? I guess it is important, but if you don't know it well enough, is that a barrier? How much should you balance those skills?
So the funny part, actually, talking about anatomy, is everything has anatomy. Hard surface, the way a the way a tree grows, everything has an anatomy structure. So it is important to understand how something is in the real world so that you could replicate it in 3D. But anatomy, I mean, it's like there's so much information there, right? I mean, I joke that I'm like kind of secretly becoming a medical doctor because there is a lot of research that I want to do as a character artist to come in and make sure that the muscle structure looks correct, that the face anatomy is readable, especially when we're dealing with human characters because we see them every day as people walking about life, and so we know when something looks wrong. So it is important, but I never actually start any of the students stressing on that because in itself, there's so much to explore with just creation and getting comfortable with blocking out shapes and just meshing something together. So while it is really important to focus on anatomy, when you start to really become serious about your career and wanting to be an artist, at the same time, starting with that, that could be overwhelming. So I say it's very important, but more towards when you're trying to actually like really dive deep into something. But if you look at the world with everything having some sort of structure, anatomy, then that helps a little bit too, because then you just kind of start seeing how something is. I actually, actually sometimes I'll talk to my friends and I'll like not hear what they're saying because I'm very interested in how their nose and their eye sockets are, and I'm like, oh, can you repeat that? I was not paying attention. I'm sorry.
We're good friends with Anna Carolina, who's another amazing ZBrush sculptor, and she's often said about jumping in, exactly this, jumping in doing characters. She's often said that actually it's easier to do a fantasy character or an alien or that type of thing rather than a more accurate humanistic character. Is that partly because we inherently know what people look like, or is there more of a technical discipline with that?
No, yeah, that's exactly it. It's because we know when something looks wrong, even if we don't understand what is wrong about it. We see people every day. So I can, looking at your face, I know where things are supposed to be proportionally, how much volume a face should have, if they look fit or if they look gaunt. So it is really we know what it is. We know what people look like. So when we're trying for the first time, human anatomy is already complex on its own. Now you're trying to replicate something and you want people to see it. And it's quite possible that what will happen is you might overload yourself a little bit and feel like you're not making a progress, even though you are, because everybody's like, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. So it's easier to start with something that's a little bit more sci-fi, fan fiction, fantasy, because the rules get completely tossed out for a lot of that stuff. It's okay. The Hulk has a tiny little head and a large body. It's totally fine. So, and dragons are cool. Animal anatomy is neat. So yeah,
Dragons are always cool. Absolutely.
insects and bugs are awesome. So yeah.
See that concept of what we know and what we are inherently used to looking at, and then we compare it, is a really interesting one. Which can I use this as a segue, because that's something we come up against in color grading all the
Yep.
time. We have somebody else on the team here, Diego Yama, who is an amazing colorist and spends a lot of his time doing grading for all the shows that you're watching on various networks and advising on workflows. So, hey Diego, I wanted to ask you two things. One, a little bit about where you came from and your history into the work and so on. But that key thing about when you're grading, when is too much? When do you have to be accurate? When you're matching skin tones to backgrounds and that sort of thing, or when you can get away with being more stylistic?
Right, so hi everyone. First, my native language is Spanish, so probably you will feel my different accent. But I'm so happy to be here. And as you say, I'm a colorist. I love workflows. I love technology, and right now that all of the color management thing is changing and so on, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy, and it's that I have to learn every day more. So about me, I'm also teach. I love to teach. I was actually in Spain for a month and a half teaching in a university, and I enjoy so much. But I was missing to grade. So I'm here right now in Colombia, and I'm going to share my screen to show you the project that I'm doing. Is this one?
Oh wow! Do we
Do
have to
you see
sign
my?
an NDA to look at this, or are you allowed to show this?
All right. Do you see my screen here? All
Yes,
right.
yes, we do.
There you go. So this is the project that I'm doing right now. I just finished it yesterday. So this is a short film, and actually, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to understand in some way the client, and also to 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 say to put something more in the project. So, for example, in this case, this is a short film from a master degree thesis, and the reference they gave me is a movie called "Call Me by Your Name." I don't know if you have watched it.
Yeah, we watched it.
And
It's really nice.
so it was really nice. It was really nice. So I watched it and I start like looking at it. I watched it two times. The first one was okay, let's enjoy the movie, and the second one was to think about what is doing what is happening there. So based on that, what I was doing here is, I mean, as you see, there are some different parts of the movie. First, when they are arriving, so let me show you how was first. I did this in ACES. So the reason that I love to work in ACES is because if there are some, I mean, first the starting point is perfect. I love the starting point and how the tools behave, and also if there are some VFX shot, I will not have any problem with color space. So that is a good option. So I start here. So as you see, there is greeny. There is a lot of greeny. I love this shot. This shot is really nice. It was like this, and I gave like a little bit warm green like style. Also, I use in this part I use a film lot for Aces. That is, I don't know what is the name. It's a Fuji 3521. It was giving me like texture. It was really like giving a good look. Also, for example, in these parts, they wanted to put like, I don't know, like a sunset. So here, this was like the main, and the sunset was in some way like this. It was funny because in some part I was thinking, hey, I'm doing Ozark because it was really greeny. But at some moment I was say, okay, I have to look at the movie again and I have to show the client the references and so on. And also, for example, here in this part, when you were talking about like skins and so on, I love skins. And I think as a colorist, we have to pay a lot of attention to the skins. So I usually do in my primaries all of the work in the skins, but here, as you notice, here I have a node that is like increasing a little bit the color of the skin because it was too greeny. So right now it's a little bit more red. And also I put a little bit of a little bit of defocus in the skin. And one of the probably this look I really like it here, this scene. So this was sunset. This was actually not sunset, sunrise. So it was a small short film, 10 minutes, but I really enjoyed it. It has like I don't know, 4 or 5 different looks. I spoke with the client about what we have to do, what we can do, and it was relaxing. It was relaxing. It was like communication all the time, and I like the result. I like the result. I hope I just send it to the client. I hope he like it.
When you have that sort of relationship with the client, it's always interesting about how much you as a colorist can influence them versus how much you are told to keep in with a specific look or treatment. Does this change for the type of job you're doing? Is it different doing on a short film than, say, on a Netflix show?
Yeah, actually, I mean, in some way, I love independent projects. I love independent projects because the communication is always smoother. And in some way, this is actually, and you became like so close. There is not like a deadline or something like that. So probably the communication is easier, and also you have less filters. For a big show, you have one filter, then you have another filter. So actually, it is so. I think it was last week. I saw a meme when was saying like, okay, first grading, then corrections, then corrections, then corrections, then corrections, and then you finish with something completely different as how you started. So in some way, that's what I like in independent like projects because the communication is smoother. It's smoother. But for sure, it's like I mean, it's like you love a look. It's a communication, and I love to create with in this case with the director of photography. Is where the look take life.
It's such an interesting balance being a colorist, isn't it? Because you've got a lot of technical things that you have to look after, as well as the creative. And it's also interesting that there was a survey over the last couple of years that the Blue Collar Post Collective did, and they asked everybody what their salary range was, and all sorts of different artists, whether an editor or a 3D sculptor or a colorist or a producer, and all those sorts of different, or a writer, in fact, anything in post-production. And the colorists came out on top by far as the most highly paid discipline, which I thought was interesting. Not just 1 year, but 2 years running since they've done that survey. And I'll post a link in the chat to this.
Nice,
So
interesting.
is this how did you get into grading? Because it's such a balance of things, of that technical and creative. Is it just something that you just jumped into, or were you inspired by somebody else? How did it happen?
No, actually, I started in VFX. I started in Flame. And as in some moment, the company bought a luster. So I went to the luster. And the reason I switched from VFX to grading, it was because I was so bad doing trackings and I hate rotoscoping. So that's the reason. So I was like, okay, let's start grading, and then I discovered that secondaries is not the key of grading, it's primaries. So when I was coming from VFX, I was doing all the time qualifier, power windows, and so on. I didn't pay attention for the primaries, and then I discovered no, primaries are the king. I like the main part of our grading.
That's interesting. So when you're planning something which is say 200 shots that you got to grade, and you've only got half an hour to do it, I'm only slightly exaggerating here. How do you manage that? Do you then therefore, since you said the primary is the key thing, do you make sure that is I know you would start there, but do you concentrate on that more to tell the story, or do you tell the story more in the secondaries?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you really have to pay attention. It's time. It's time. Sometimes you have to make 700 shots in 8 hours. So it's like before doing anything, like start planning what are you going to do. So in that case, primaries, maybe a power window or something like that, but primaries. And also you were talking about the salaries and so on, but also I think the salaries are higher because as a colorist, for example, to finish is 200 shots, you need to have a color panel. You must have a color panel. I mean, if you are doing just with mouse, probably you will not finish fast. So you must have a color panel that is expensive, and also a broadcast monitor, broadcast calibrator monitor that is expensive. So probably that is one of the reasons that I mean the rate is a little bit more expensive because of the toys.
Absolutely. It's not just the toys, though, isn't it? It's keeping up with the tech, because you've run many sessions with Max on Max's Maxon Color show, and you've both been talking about the ACEs workflows and how those also are being adapted and they are improved and adjusted over time, and so that you've got to keep up with all the tech too. So there must be an amount of time that you have to do to research those as well.
Yeah, and that's what I love more. That's actually what I love more. I mean, it's not just grading; it's learning. It's learning. That's what I really enjoy of being a colorist. It's like you have to learn and you have to study all the time.
I think that's the key thing, especially as trainers. We are all, I might go out on a limb and speak for all of us here, but that's part of the joy, that you're still learning, and then you can then, that excitement to then share those new things with other people as well. Lots of nods. Oh, phew, I got it right.
Yeah.
So talking of learning, this terrible segue, but I just wanted to make sure we jump through and we cover as many things as we can. Lionel, I've known you for a while now, and I've known of you for much longer, and you have this amazing skill, talking about learning, of being able to manage multiple different disciplines, because you do all sorts of things with 3D as well as in renderers and in After Effects as well. So, as well as asking you just quickly how you got started, how do you manage those disciplines? How do you keep up to date across discipline, if you like?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Hello, everyone. So yeah, the truth is I get bored very easily. So that's why when I know something about something, I get bored with it, and then I jump to another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing, and now I have trouble remembering everything because it gets crowded in there. Right now, I'm learning Blender. I'm getting okay with it, so it's another software to learn. But the side effect of all this is everything is connected. When you learn something somewhere, you're able to reproduce the same thinking, the same apply everywhere. So you can transpose your knowledge from one software to the other. Everything is connected. Even in color, for example, I'm a very bad colorist, but I know how it works, because if you want to do texturing, if you want to use After Effects, you have to know about colors. I had to learn ACEs, so yeah. Finally, I understood what is a color profile after some time. And yeah, everything is connected. That's what I like Diego said, and also Ian, what I like the most with our job is to learn. I love to learn, and the second thing I love the most is to talk about it. So I'm blessed because I'm always boring everyone with a history fact or geography fact, but I can earn money and help people, helping them to do 3D and so on. I'm like Jan. I mean, I can talk forever if you want.
It's interesting what you said about connecting the different softwares because of the concepts, if you like. Because just a quick plug here. This is what Lionel's doing in July. Every Monday in July, we're running a demystifying session, and along with Chad, we're doing particles, and so we're jumping in between programs. We're looking at Cinema 4D particles and at X particles, stuff that you used to be able to do in After Effects, and also now what you can do in Particular. And then also we're going to jump into a little bit of Houdini particles with Redshift and Unreal particles as well. But that's the core theme of that, is the ability to transfer your knowledge. So you don't necessarily have to learn everything all over again. You've got that core knowledge that then you can apply to these different tools.
Yes, exactly. And I would say it goes even further than that because I love to read everything. I love to watch movies. And I would say everything is connected on the whole. I mean, not just in 3D, in books. I find ideas that can apply in 3D. Even if I read philosophy, for example, I can have some concept that you could apply somewhere else. And about science and math, I mean, if I had known that math was so interesting during my childhood, I would have learned more, I guess, because there is math everywhere, and math is beautiful. And I really wish, I have one regret is that not to have listened when I was in school about math, because now it's difficult to learn advanced math when you're 40.
Same here.
But I try, yeah. Math is beautiful. Every time I say that to students, whichever age they are, they all no, math is hell, and that's too bad. Maybe it's a French thing, I don't know, but I think it's the same problem in the US and other countries. I don't know.
Similar regrets, two regrets in my teens. One wasn't keeping up with my piano lessons as much, and the other is not doing mathematics enough. Exactly. Never realized how useful that would be.
Yeah, mathematics and like also programming. Those are the two. But they are pretty much connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd say music as well is related to all three, isn't it?
Yes, everything's connected because music is a language and programming is a language. And when I read literature, when I read a book, the sentence, the order of the sentence, the meaning of the words, it's important. Like when you code, it's almost like writing a book, but for someone very autistic, I guess, which is the computer. And it's so interesting because now we have computer that can write book, not quite, but they can write sentences. You can use them to copyright thing, for example. Everything is connected. So that's what I like to learn, to find the whole scheme of the world. I don't know if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that the new stuff and learning new techniques and adding to your skill set, I think, not only is fun, but it's core as if it's a freelance artist, as a full-time artist as well, to be increasing that. Because as Miles Davis famously said, you can't just be inspirational all the time. You've got to get the technical stuff right too, and then it balances it like a seesaw, and that's how you can get better and better. And so on that note, how did you get started, Lionel? Were you always just jumped in to be an artist? Where did it all begin for you?
That's funny. It's a rather long story, so I will keep it short. When I was very young, when I was 13, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo, I don't know how to say it in English, so it's a very famous French writer, and that was very ambitious for me to be Victor Hugo. This is the French writer. Then I wrote a book, and at 17, because it got rejected in publishing houses, I thought I was over. So I switched to cinema, the second thing I love the most. And that was my first mistake, to give up at 17. I mean, if I had succeeded in publishing a book at 17, whatever. So I went to a film school. Then I directed 4 short movies. And because it was only short movies, and I was very broke, and you need a lot of money to do cinema. You had to have contact, to know people and so on. I thought it was a failure too, so I switched again, and I had to eat. I had to earn money, so I went into editing, because when you're an editor in a room, you are not bothered. You're with the computer, and you just work on the. It's not on the set. Everything is always going wrong on the set. Well, that's what I remember about sets. So I became an editor, and then I got bored very easily, very fast, because you only work with the film bits you're given. So I started to create my own bits of film with After Effects. And then I moved on to be a graphic designer, then moving on to be a motion designer. Then I found out about 3D about 10 years ago. No, more than that. More like 15 years ago, and I just fell in love with 3D, and especially Cinema 4D. And because I wanted to really learn about 3D, because it was so obscure, so difficult, I started doing tutorials. And that's another trick I heard from many of you. When you learn, if you want to teach something, you have to learn it first. So that's when I started to learn everything about Cinema 4D, because it was the idea. I ended up knowing almost everything, because you never know everything. And that got the attention of Maxon and so on. And now I'm a trainer full time. I don't work anymore with clients. I still do, but very few. I have only very few select clients, mostly for television. I just enjoy doing tutorials and webinars, because I'm so free when I create anything. So yeah, that's the not so short story of me.
It's very true that if you want to learn something, book a session that you have to teach it, and then you definitely know it by the time you've delivered that session.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Do you
and
think
it's more
that...
fun, actually? It's more fun.
Yes, it's more fun. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the stress of, oh my goodness, I have to teach this tomorrow.
Yeah, that's it. Every time I have something to do, oh my God, how is it possible?
Why did I agree to do this? Let's delay
the power
for a
of
month.
deadlines, right?
Oh yeah, we need the deadlines.
Do you think, Lionel, that's all those different disciplines that you went through with the writing and the editing, and with the motion graphics? Did you think that is a good thing to have, to give you a reference when you're making stuff in 3D, so you understand the different disciplines and the different places in the pipeline?
Yes, that's interesting, because I'm a bit of a geek, and I've read a ton of books, watched a ton of movies. I read about history book and so on, so I can't say I can bore you with historical fact and so on. I do it sometime on Teams. You have noticed, and for some time I thought it was the only use of that was to be the best of all on Trivial Pursuit. You know, the game board where I never lose at that game, because I know a lot of things, but I thought it's just useless. I mean, it just makes me look like a geek, like a nerd. And after, I think that served me very well, because I translate Cinema 4D too in French, because I know how to write. I love to write. I love to have a good spelling and so on. So that landed me that translation job that I like, and also about when you know about art, about books and so on, you find ideas more easily. You can find references everywhere. because nothing has been invented for some time now, and we are all doing again the stuff our ancient one have done many years ago. And that's interesting to mix everything up and to see what's what, because everything has been done before in another way, but it's been done. Huh? So when we're just building on top of all that, and to it's interesting to have this knowledge, I think.
I think it's very useful to help you as well understand when you deliver something, the story element and the design element and the grading element too. And you said a wonderful thing in there. On set, everything goes wrong. So I couldn't help but look at Tony when you were saying that, because Tony is somebody who experiences that a lot. So I just wanted to ask you a question, Tony, too. Thank you, by the way, Lionel. That was fantastic. I didn't know that you were a writer. Now I want to read your book. But
sometimes
talking of things going wrong. So Tony, I'd love you to tell us a little about yourself, because every time I do an intro for you, I leave stuff out, because you film stuff, you plan stuff, you edit it, you do post-production, you wheel the big truck into productions with all those drives on it, so you manage people's workflows as well, and then you're a filmmaker too. You travel and make documentaries, and so I could go on, but I think you're better at talking about yourself. But with the theme of how do you get into this, I'd like to ask you how you do that, but also cross-reference that. If you had to do this now, what would you do? Because I'd like to see the difference between when you started and what the scene is like now.
Well, let me see. There's no short answer to that, but I could say the first thing you do is buy yourself time. And by buying yourself time, you buy yourself the gear that you're going to use. And I'm not sharing my screen, but I could share this right here. This is one of my first cameras I got.
Is that an XL2?
XL2, yeah.
Yes.
Canon XL2 mini DV tape. I started before that with high 8 tapes, just messing around. But the first time I was able to do anything that involved professional work was just, buying myself the gear to use it, to the point where I was so sick of it and so tired of it. I slept with it. I took it everywhere. I shot every single thing. And if there was something that involved the camera, that I was the one shooting it. I was shooting everything for everybody. And then there, to the point where I got annoyed with people asking me to shoot their wedding, shoot their little event, shoot their every single thing, until I understood it to the T. I knew the camera inside and out. I've pushed every single button and tried it, several different ways. But also the flip side to that is understanding the whole process and how much the process actually means. So for me, training came from the lack of knowledge. And, I went to a traditional school, like an art school, right? So I went to an art school, and, I had a mixed bag. Some people were exceptional and some people weren't. And I think more than anything, I think the people that weren't had more of an effect on me, because basically they made me go out and I took a 5-day course that cost me like $2,000 back in like 2004 or something. And that was to become like a Final Cut certified editor back when Final Cut 4.5 or something was out. And that really made me want to know every single thing underneath the hood, and treated everything about process like it was a car and I was the mechanic. So I just wanted to know every single thing, how the buttons work. If I shot something and I want to see it, like what parts do I show, what parts do I not, as far as editing, story, and then as far as technical, in case something was messed up, I want to be able to fix it. Excuse me, I think I'm losing my voice. So besides that, like I said, just buying yourself time. And what I would do nowadays, I don't know, I think the camera would be 10 times better than what I used for a fraction of the cost. But you know, just dive into things. Like I got a lot more into streaming now since 2020. It was really starting to kick up in 2019, but 2020, you know, when everybody was at home, I just picked up jobs that were normally just, you know, if it was a set job or if it was some kind of technical job, you know, it was like 4 people and we were streaming to thousands of people. So it was, you know, I have a background in broadcast, but I also streaming and broadcast are very similar in many ways, but they're not exactly the same thing. But, you know, picking up new talents by jumping in the pool and not being afraid to drown. So like I just say is like it just goes back to like buying yourself time. And you know, when people spend money on, you know, going out and doing whatever, I'll go and you know, I'll save some money and I'll buy some gear, you know. And I'm kind of a tech head. I got all kind of nerdy things on my desk. And I love keeping up with technology, and wherever technology goes, I like to see what happens in the field. And if there's something that's coming out, I want to like be the one to put my hands on it before most people do. It's just something I strive to do. So I feel like that really helped propel me into a specific realm. And I really enjoy sharing with people like correct methods and paying attention to process. You know, versus just, you know, some people, if you don't know, you know, if there's 5 steps, you'll go 1, 2, and jump to 5 because you don't know what 3 and 4 are. And for me, process matters. And, you know, there may be new ways of doing that process, but I really like connecting the dots. So I hope that sums it up.
Very interesting things a couple of interesting things you said there. One is pressing all the buttons on the camera, and the just making sure you know everything under the hood. That's a sign of an inquisitive mind as well. And as Gyanendra says on the chat, Tony, are you traveling the most dangerous road? Just jumping in there. And I think that there is an element of that, because Ian said a related thing about just doing it. And there's often the question that we get, certainly about the certification exams that we run, or then tests and the self-assessments and so on. When are you ready to do those? And when are you ready to make that leap and become a trainer and have the audacity to say, yeah, I can train people. And I would hazard a guess also across the rest of the team. Has anyone else just done it and just leapt in? We might have that as a question later on, as a joint panel question, but it does seem like a theme, because is what you're saying is that there wasn't a time where you suddenly felt, yes, I've achieved this level. You just were like, I just have to do this because it's a passion for you.
Yeah. You say your mouth sometimes says yes before you hesitate, because you want to have a job and an opportunity. And if you're a freelancer, exactly, you say no, and now you've literally shut down a whole you know, section of work that you could have had. So I mean, if you say yes, then go back to the lab and reinforce your mind, and you know, learn everything you have to learn. If you're you know, if you're not willing to say yes, you're probably going to stay in your sandbox, and you're not going to go too far. So the daring part is kind of what helps expand your map, you know.
Can we get an amen?
Yeah.
This is true. I remember going into a bookshop years ago, and in the self-help section, they had this getting to yes, and there's this whole book about getting you to be able to say yes to things. And I think I would need the opposite book as a freelance back then. I need the ability to say no.
Yeah, yes by default.
Yeah, the answer, of course, yes. Yeah. Well, as trainers, we are problem solvers, so that's inherently part of the yes answer, which for me makes me the world's worst negotiator, because I just want to solve the client's problem, which is to do it for half the rate, or whatever the request was. So there's always a balance in there. Yeah, but the Dustin, I noticed you called for an amen on that, because that's resonating with you. We'd loved also to hear a bit about your background, because you have a unique background as well, and how you managed to meld for digital photography with 3D and get involved with cosplay artists and so on. But in additionally to that, would you say that has also been a guiding principle that what Tony was talking about, just jumping in and just feeling the fear and doing it anyway?
100%. That's definitely something that I resonate with. As an artist, kind of as a kid, like I've always been interested in art. Started off with sketches and things like that as a child. When I got to high school, I was kind of that kid that didn't really pay attention in like graphic design class and would do my own thing. And I don't know how I ever passed those classes. But you know, I really had kind of a deep interest in Photoshop itself. And then I started getting into a world of, you know, kind of creating just different, maybe like key art, things of that nature, which, you know, geez, this is, you know, years ago. But at that point, it was just stuff that I thought was great, but it was never good enough. And so I continued just pushing the envelope. I got into 3D. Oh, man, that was 2008. I was actually on a deployment with the military, and it was a good time for me to sit and start to learn and kind of dive into different forms of art. And so for me, that came in learning ZBrush. And when I say learning, I mean learning how to click with a mouse and just pull verts. Learning ZBrush and yeah, I know Ian's here. He's got my back. And so, you know, learning ZBrush and learning 3ds Max. I found out very quickly that I liked the idea of 3D, but 3ds Max wasn't the package that I saw myself sitting in for a long time. So when I got back from the deployment, I started kind of diving into Cinema 4D just a little bit. And from that point on, it's been it's been like my primary 3D software. So 2012, I actually went to Full Sail University, and majored in compositing, 2014. And that for me, you know, kind of really helped solidify my love for post-production, whether that's in live action or just in Photoshop. And so I learned to kind of bridge a bunch of different gaps, but what I would consider kind of a self-taught phase up until that point had really helped me kind of excel. So my plan was to get into the motion picture industry as a film compositor. And then I had more children. And so I decided that wasn't the route to go. And so I kind of shifted gears a little bit and got into commercial, automotive and product rendering. And that's pretty much where I've sat. And so, you know, for me, it's the flexibility of being an artist, and not being afraid to get your feet wet. You know, like Tony said, you just kind of dive in and say yes. And then you pick up what you need to know, because there's always 1,000 reasons not to dive into something. It doesn't matter whether it's cost. If it's a cost thing, hustle, figure it out, you know, find the way to make the means, to make things happen for you. But on the creative side, you know, all of these different software packages and, you know, Cinema 4D, Redshift, Octane, whatever you want to use, like they're all tools. And so if you learn to use those tools and say yes to a new skill set to kind of add to that toolbox, you know, you're really kind of unlimiting yourself from a lot of different possibilities. And so for me, that came into the world of, you know, learning 3D and getting a good base there, which at the time, this was like 2009. I started off doing album covers and mixtape covers for local hip hop artists and things like that. And, you know, I thought Cinema 4D was amazing because I could have these text tools and different materials and lighting, and, you know, the title on these covers was great. I got tired of, you know, the clients sending me cell phone photos to composite. And so I borrowed a buddy's camera and bought a cheap $150 set. I think they were Cowboy Studio lights. And I just went for it. I'm like, hey, I'm a photographer now. I was shooting in JPEG, knew nothing about RAW, but at the time I didn't need to because I knew Photoshop. And in my mind, it was like, hey, I know how to make this look good here. So I just kind of move on. And so over time, you know, when you develop skill sets, you start to, you know, find processes and ways and, of making things more efficient. So for me, that came into learning all of the buttons on the camera, learning that, hey, I have 16-bit images in RAW and I only had 8-bit in JPEG. And so I can start to manipulate things a little bit better. But experience is gained over time in using that tool. And so, for me, it's always been, kind of diving in and learning what's possible in a software with, before I let my brain get clouded up with all the ideas of things that go wrong or what I don't know. And then over time, just being okay with learning, past that 10 or 20% of stuff that you need to know to get your job done. So, I kind of, I've always thrived on what I would consider like the hustler's mentality, like say yes and figure it out. Yeah. Long story short, I'm an artist and I like teaching people.
It's we've had a number of themes going here. The main one is just do it. But the other one is the flexibility and the being able to pivot. So when you're talking about the responsibilities that you faced, especially having children, and deciding to do something that fitted in with them, but also satisfied the creative nature of what you wanted to do for a career. So that's also a flexible thing, as well as being flexible to just go out and shoot stuff rather than composite the cell phone images that people were giving you. So that to me is also a very important part of it when you're looking at these problems, and then how do I solve this? So that flexibility to be able to look around the problem and think in a different way about it.
Definitely. And it's interesting because once you develop new skills, so for me, it's, photography in 3D like goes so well together, which is why I love teaching photographers about 3D. Is because there's, one of the things that I like to preach about is not neglecting your prior experience when you start to, learn a new software or a new skill. And in photography in 3D, cinematography in 3D, like all of these things go so well together, and are so impactful on, that final result that it's pretty cool. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a modeler, a material artist, shading, lighting, post-production, everything's all revolved around what would be a final result, and what people see. And so having a good idea and understanding of what like each part of a process or a pipeline does, is heavily valued. So, yeah.
That knowledge, that desire to learn, and that desire to test and just lose yourself in the software or the hardware or the techniques. Absolutely. So I've got one eye on the time, and I know we typically run these things up to an hour, and we never overrun as a team, as you well know. But I've just got an open question for everyone on the panel, and especially those who haven't have managed to get a word in edgeways because of me interrupting everyone. But as a trainer, what would we do these days if you were starting out your career? I know we've talked about just saying yes and just jumping into the software, finding out what every button does, as Tony says. But if you were challenged now with being a trainer, how might you do it differently? What sort of things would you think would be useful these days?
I got one real quick because I'm gonna have to unfortunately leave, but embrace failure is the big one for me. I know you always hear it. Everybody says jump in and do it, but the thing is that everybody's afraid. I know I was afraid to fail at something because we're introduced when we're trying to learn something with the greatest of it all. We see the best sculptures, the best art pieces, the best photography, the best renders, and we're like, I want to be able to do that. And then you get in and then you can't do it and you get frustrated. But we learn through failure, and that's how I've learned. Every time I've done something and it didn't work, I actually note that down as that's just how not to do it. And I've eventually whittled it down to where I get, this is how I can do it. And then I start to expand from there. So failure is always going to be a part of that learning, but it's not a negative word. We have to like start to embrace it as being more of a positive word that helps us in our journey as creatives and as people who are aspiring to teach others. Always don't be afraid of the basics, keep that knowledge coming in always. So embrace failure. That's what I say.
Amen.
Yeah, that's so true.
Where can I sign that?
We'll make it a shirt. Maxon 1, embrace failure.
Embrace failure. Well, as Hashi said on the show, come fail with us every Friday for VFX and chill.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, don't fail. Just putting out there a different.
Thanasis always has some wise musings on this topic. So yes, that's true.
If you can avoid it, don't. But
trust
if you
yourself
can't
to do
avoid
okay as well. Yes.
Well, you have to fail, not to fail afterward.
Yeah, you don't have to admit it though. Yeah.
Just don't tell me. Just don't tell me.
Hide it. Make it
Fine.
someone else's fault. Blame someone else. It's always easy to blame someone else. If not anything, your pet. We all know that.
Yeah, the dog did it.
There you go.
I'd also like to ask a general question, and perhaps I can ask you this first, Darrin, about the people that you train, because you regularly train people who want to increase their skills, specifically in cinema and Redshift, and the sorts of challenges that they find. Is there a common theme that you find when people are learning something that they need to overcome? Is there something that is a thread between different learners, irrespective of their experience, whether they're somebody who's new or they're somebody who's been working for years on it? Is there something that you see as a common thread?
I feel like I just got a hard question, but that's a really good one. It's interesting because most of the people that I'm doing training sessions with, they're all, they're working. They're already working. They're not necessarily getting into this work, although many of them are maybe expanding their tool set to include Cinema 4D and Redshift. So the issue I've seen, the common denominator is more about time. Okay. Because when they're getting into this at work, they have it at work. And then, then after work, it's, maybe it doesn't go home with them. So they have that finite amount of time during the day that they have to learn and expand their capabilities in Cinema 4D or Redshift or whatever that program may be, while also getting a tremendous amount of work done. So it really just comes down to time management. That's the common denominator I found.
Buying yourself time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue when you get older, to find time. I really miss when I was 25 and I had nothing to do all day but to learn Cinema 4D or whatever. Now I just don't find time to do anything at all. My schedule is full for many months. I miss the time when I had time.
Same like music, like what Simon said before, right? So when we were young, we practice to get better. Now we practice not to forget.
Yeah.
Not to get extremely bad.
That's so true.
Very true.
There's Noseman told me once. This was a while ago. I was like, how do you do so much all the time? And do you remember what you said?
That it's all BS. I deceive people. No, it must be something else. I don't remember. I'm wrong.
Like, because you had to, or you'd forget.
Oh yeah, I still go back and watch my own tutorials, or I've recorded. I started recording a tutorial I already recorded a long time ago because I couldn't remember. Anyway, I mean, yeah, let's not stick to the detail. Please, everyone, forget about what Darrin said.
Same here.
It's a repository of knowledge, our own teaching sometimes. Yeah, but never admit it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
We've joked about that in the past, about watching your own tutorial and then taking notes, thinking, this is a great point. I should write this down and use it in training sessions.
True.
Do that all the time. I've also recorded the same tutorial 6 months later thinking, oh, I really need to record one about this, and then uploaded it. And as I'm uploading it, realized I've just done exactly the same tutorial again. I completely forgot I did the other one.
Oh, that happened to me too, but it was just 2 months after I released the first one. It was a quick tip back then, and then I felt guilty. I deleted it again and recorded a new one quickly to upload that one. But yeah, that happens.
Actually, Jonas, I've got a question for you because you managed to keep on top of lots of new techniques I've noticed, and especially because you put out a new tip every week. And I'm sure some of this is inspired by the new things you're learning every time we have a new release. For example, Cinema 4DS 26.1, it was out yesterday, by the way, if you're interested. But how do you keep up with this? How do you manage your learning of new stuff whilst you're running sessions or just testing stuff out creatively?
Well, to be honest, it's getting harder and harder because there is so much cool stuff out there that I also want to learn. So yeah, it's quite a challenge to balance the time like between learning and teaching and also do all of the other organizational stuff that we have to do. Yeah, but once you find the right balance, I think it's okay. And by the way, it's not just the new features that are inspiring. It's also like old features that you don't know yet. So I'm learning pretty much every day. And yeah, it's like, I would say 70% of the time, it's just old stuff that I learn.
I'm learning now that Darrin has a new skill, lip syncing Jonas.
Yeah, and he's extremely good at that.
This is it. It's all
that's
about
just because he's agreeing with me. He wanted my words to come out of his mouth.
For the record, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait a minute, like this is not working. My brain could not compute this.
Yeah, I know. Please do something. Get me out of there.
All right. Sorry. There you go.
Thank you.
So there we go. Multitasking.
Multitasking is another challenge, definitely. So yeah, like presenting or talking, listening, producing a show. It's all challenging, and it's becoming worse every day. I don't want to say that I'm old, but it's already getting me sometimes.
My trick is just writing everything down. Every time I remember something, I just quickly write it down. Otherwise, then I'll forget it.
Yeah, but that would be another task that I have to do.
Yes. Just want to give the last... Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask, how old are you? I mean, I know you shouldn't say these things in public, but go ahead. Be honest.
What? Type it in the chat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, in the background chat. Well,
I was born last century, so that I was born in a time before Photoshop had layers, and whilst everyone
before the moon landing or after.
I was born before the moon landing. That was in 1969. I actually apparently sat up and watched the moon landing. So I'm now in my 6th decade. So the amount of things that I've now forgotten has matched all the things that I need to learn.
Yeah, I think we're the same generation. I mean, these youngsters think they're getting old, and they don't realize what's coming to them in the next 20 years. So give me a call in private. I'll give you a tip. Anyway, my advice, I always give this advice to everyone. If there's one thing you can do in your lives, very important, don't get old, right? That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. And also don't be like embarrassed when you have to tell someone how old you are. So I'm not. I can totally tell you my age. I'm 2016.
Very good. Cool. I just want to give the last word to Max because we're just slightly over time, but I did want to ask Max because about his filmmaking and photography, because talking about multitasking, there's something that also informs the other disciplines that we have to do. And I know that you regularly run the color grading show every other Thursday. So how much would you say, Max, that there we go, Max on color, on cue, there we go. So how much does that inform what you're doing? And in these times where we're having to keep up with the ACES transforms updates, how do you manage keeping up with that?
Well, I consider myself like to be very lucky on these positions, because like as you guys pointed out, it's like, you know, as a trainer, you never stop learning. And these sessions, this shows is like such a blessing for me, because I got to connect with a lot of like guest speakers, a lot of like people like Diego, like Alexandru Fury, his name, from other disciplines, and got to pick their brain and talk to them. I mean, outside of work, probably I will be limited by time again, but then, you know, when I can do that while working and get paid for that, it's like, wow. All at once. And speaking of like the color management things, I also get to meet Colin Kelly. He's like my personal favorite hero when it comes to color management and grading. It's like, and he will be attending. He will be showing up as a guest as well in Maxon Color. So, and we'll be talking about like ACES and demystifying like the ACES framework itself, and such a great opportunity to you know, just chat with somebody that normally it's just like out of reach, and that's really a rare opportunity, and it never comes twice. So, you know, use it.
That's an interesting thing, isn't it? That resonates with what several of us have been saying, and what Tony said as well about just saying yes. It's take that opportunity, because you don't necessarily know when it's going to come again. Absolutely.
Like what Tony pointed out, when you say no, you were like shutting down a lot of things that you may been doing. So just say yes and learn it later and deal with it later.
Could you put Darrin back in that bubble while Max is talking?
Oh yeah, please.
There you go.
That's perfect. By request.
Darrin is actually an AI-generated bot that we've testing out the lip sync activities and seeing if that's capable.
What I want to say on top of that is that you know, nowadays it's quite the opposite, like us back in the day. I mean, when I was a teenager or something like that, searching for a correct information or something like that, it's very hard. Informations are very rare. Nowadays it's quite the opposite. Informations are abundant. It's out there. The question is like, how do I get the correct informations? How do I filter that? And that's a challenge for today's you know, person that want to learn, that want to advance their craft. So getting to filter those abundant informations is like really important.
That's a wonderful ending concept, actually, because that's something that I've experienced and I watch across the team on a daily basis. The fact that information, you say, Max, when I started, you know, back when we still had cart horses instead of cars, thank you, Noseman, there wasn't pre-internet, there wasn't the ability just to dial up and get some tutorial on something. You had to figure it out. And so what I see on a daily basis is not only the information that we share publicly, but also the information that we share across the team, where people ask each other, hey, how do you do this? Or what's the best way of solving that? So that's the wonderful thing about having our collective team together, is that knowledge that we can just rely on each other. So that's a good place to finish, because that's a fun thing for me to see all the time.
Can I say a final comment here?
Please do.
Simon, we are from the era where copy-paste involved glue, literal glue.
Yeah.
So just, you know, when I hear younger people talk about, oh, the information was hard to get and all that,
Right.
yeah, we most of our lives in a similar profession, right? Everything was manual. You had to use scissors, you had to use copy machines, you have to use glue, nails. hammers. You know, it was quite interesting. And getting information, you had to go to the library. Yeah, that was it. There was no information didn't come to you. You went to the information, and it was some heavy lifting. I'm very grateful for that, though.
What is a library?
All right, we'll talk about this. I'm going to make a tutorial for the young ones about all these. Like phones used to have cables permanently attached to a little plug in the wall. I don't know if you knew that. Or a pencil is an apparatus that has a thing called ink, and you can write on paper, which is made mostly of wood.
What?
Anyway, these are you know, a very old concepts. That's what I say.
So yes, it's very true. And those times with the letter set machine, they're just peeling those letters off and then realizing I got one L too few and having to do the whole layout in it. That's, yes, brings me back nightmares. All that time where I was doing tape-to-tape editing and forgot to put in the original scene 15 minutes into the actual final edit. So I then had to start again because it wasn't it was linear, not non-linear. But anyway, some great comments in the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Hello Trilly, for those lovely comments about the great insights and everything. And yes, Ellie couldn't join us today, so we love having her inspiration and her feedback for these things. She was on the previous session, so we'll give you the link for that as well. And then also, who was it says in the chat that you may be old, but you're still good looking? I directed to me. I totally agree with that.
What about me?
Sorry, obviously they were talking about you.
Yeah, what about us?
You're not old enough to
collectively. It's a team. Good looking as a team.
I want to say about female presenters one thing. I'm very good friends with Robin Haddo, and she's an amazing presenter as well. But what happens mostly in our industry, females are so talented and so sought out that they have very limited time to be with a bunch of people just talking about themselves. So yeah, this is not intentional. The opposite. It shows the amazing success female artists have in our industry. So
absolutely, yes to that, underlined in bold. So just to wrap up, I put into the chat where you can find out more of the sessions that all of these people in front of you are running over the next number of weeks and months. So please feel free to go to the maxon.net events page and check on all the different topics for the training sessions and also some of the live things that we are going to be visiting. We're going to head up to SIGGRAPH in Vancouver in early August, and also Jonas is heading over to where are you going, Jonas, in a couple of weeks' time?
Next week to Spain.
Next week, that's right. You're going to Spain. That's it.
So that's
it.
That's the show I'm going to have a presentation.
You can find out more about all these shows on that page too. Yeah. So we're delighted to be doing these things in person now as well as virtually, which is fantastic.
Come visit Maxon booth and say hi.
Yes, exactly.
Who's going to be at SIGGRAPH? Raise of hands. Who's going to be at SIGGRAPH? Oh, my God. People I've known for years, which I have had never met in person. From this group, it's Darrin, it's Jonas, and maybe we crossed paths but didn't know each other with Simon, Lionel, maybe ABC or something like that. But it's amazing when you know people, your friends, you talk about your families, you talk about, you generate very close relationships when you're doing something like this, which involves people. And then you realize, Dustin, I've never touched him. You know, he's a friend, he's a family member. And, and it's amazing. Like Simon, great relationship, all that. I've never actually met him, in person. So it's going to be a great opportunity to do that. And I hope to see more of you in the future as well.
Totally. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. And please join us for our future journeys all together. And thanks again, behind the scenes, Hashi, for doing all this tech. And thank you, Kyle, also at Maxon, for helping us out and setting up the restream where we're able to actually stream to multiple different locations. So it's a balance of tech and inspiration. So thank you again for that.
Thank you.
We put Darrin back in the bubble now?
Gosh, don't.
That's the unofficial show title.
Don't do it.
Next show.
Yes, next show.
Next show.
All right,
Cool.
thank you.
Thanks.
See you on the next one, everyone. Thank you.
Cool.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.